Hi, this is Hatim Kheir, counsel for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, with the update for Day 16 of the Public Order Emergency Commission. So, today was a bit of a long day. We heard from three witnesses. We heard from Benjamin Dichter, James Bowder, and the in-chief testimony of Tamara Leach, to be continued tomorrow. I'll go through them one by one, and then I'll give you my thoughts. So just beginning with Benjamin Dichter, we first heard a little bit about his background in politics. He explained that he knew Tamara from before the whole Freedom Convoy protest, and then he got involved with it through her. His role, as he described it, was to take a lead on messaging. And he said that he wanted to communicate a message of peace, love, unity, and freedom were the four things that he kept coming back to. He explained he is a trucker himself, but he didn't bring his own truck because he was there for the messaging component. He did disagree with the description of the negotiations that had happened between the protesters and the police in the city, and he disputed some elements of what was described by Keith Wilson. He also was a bit critical, saying that he didn't think that Mr. Wilson or Tom Marazzo wanted to end the mandates, but rather that they wanted to end the protests. And overall, he was critical of the deal with the city. We then heard from James Bowder. He is the author, or one of the authors, of the Memorandum of Understanding that we've been hearing about from other witnesses. And he's involved with the organization, or rather, he heads the organization, Canada Unity. So he explained that he was involved with a previous convoy to Ottawa called Operation Bear Hug, and him and his organization had done some of the logistical planning in terms of the route to Ottawa that was eventually used by Freedom Convoy protesters. So much of his testimony was about the Memorandum of Understanding. He explained that he had no legal assistance in drafting it, and he said, quote, "It means nothing because nobody signed it and nobody entered into it," end quote. So going through he was taken through the Memorandum of Understanding, which contemplated an agreement between certain protesters and the Senate and Governor General, because it was his belief that the Senate and the Governor General were a direct source of laws, were his phrasing. But then ultimately he withdrew the Memorandum of Understanding, and he explained that in his view it had done its purpose and it was being misrepresented, so he withdrew it. And then at the end of the day, we heard the direct examination of Tamara Leach by Commission counsel. She talked about how she felt as though, in her view, this was about having a discussion with somebody. She said she hoped it would have started a dialogue. It was quite an emotional testimony. She explained that, there's a quote I have written down here: "I have the tears of thousands of Canadians on my shoulder who every day thank me for giving them hope." She talked a little bit about, or actually quite a bit about, how the convoy got started. She says that in her view, Bridget Belton and Chris Barber were the founders. She didn't see Pat King and James Bowder really as having that role, and she only found out about their involvement on January 13th or 14th. She also described how the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms became involved, with lawyers who flew into Ottawa to provide legal advice to protesters. She explained that prior to that she had heard of the Justice Center, but she had never thought she'd have to use them. But then ultimately she was very thankful for help from the Justice Center, and it was quite nice to hear. She described Keith Wilson and the other lawyers as knights in shining armor. She explained how as the GoFundMe had really blown up and now had millions of dollars in it, she felt an extreme amount of responsibility on her shoulders. She described some steps that had been taken to manage the money in a responsible manner, including setting up a finance committee and a distribution plan for money, though ultimately, after $1 million of the money or thereabout had been transferred into her account at TD, the very next day her account was frozen. So ultimately only $26,000 of donations, none of which came from GoFundMe, but rather they came from e-transfer donations that she'd received, was pulled out. $13,000 went to buying bulk fuel, and the other $13,000 was distributed to road captains. She described her perspective of the protest as being one of a positive atmosphere where people from different parts of the country were coming together. She did explain her background in politics. She was involved with the Wexit movement, so that's the West Exit movement. It's an Alberta separatist movement, as well as the Maverick Party. Though she said that she resigned from the Maverick Party and stopped becoming a supporter of Albertan secession after seeing the pan-Canadian nature of the protest, of the Freedom Convoy protest. She said that the one word that she kept hearing was hope. She also described it as the biggest love fest that she's ever participated in. And then her testimony in chief ended with a very emotional description of what it was like to be arrested and the impact it's had on her. The fact that she's had to watch everything that she does, and that she feels like she has to watch what she says and what she does. And she even described wanting to avoid being next to her daughter just because of the reaction that other people might have to her. So her testimony is going to be continuing tomorrow with cross-examination. So that's a summary of the day. Just overall, we've heard basically more about two things that we've been hearing about before. One of which was the Memorandum of Understanding, which has been confirmed by James Bowder to be to ultimately have amounted to nothing, because it was intended as an agreement that wasn't signed by the other side, and he agreed he wasn't receiving any legal advice on it. We also heard about the meeting between protesters and the city. We've already heard about it from the police officers. This was a deal that did happen and did go through, so that perhaps goes more to Mr. Dichter's knowledge of it than anything else. So that's it for today. I won't be able to provide a video update tomorrow, so the next video update will be on Monday. Thanks, and I'll see you then.